and building Waterloo Region. 570 News presents Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. Well, we are very excited about this show. We're going to get right to it. We all know about the free trade deal, free trade and more, negotiated between the federal government and the European Union recently. And by all accounts, I'm hearing nothing but positives about this deal. We're very delighted to have with us our first guest on the show, John Tennant, former Canadian diplomat and trade commissioner, served in the States in the 80s when the Canada-U.S. free trade deal was being negotiated, and we're delighted to have him with us with Ian and Greg, and let's get right to it, gentlemen.
Well, thanks very much, Glenn, and thanks very much, Mr. Tennant, for coming in. You're one of my favorite people, and especially when it comes to economic development and trade. Probably, I guess, certainly from my impression, one of the foremost experts in the region for us to lean on, certainly for advice and going forward. This is probably one of the most monumental deals from business's perspective, certainly today. You were knee deep, maybe even higher than knee deep, involved in the Canada-U.S. trade agreement way back when you were trade commissioner.
In Detroit, Chicago, and New York, right?
That's right. That's right. John, why don't you give us, kind of an overview on first of all, maybe your past participation in the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement, but also how it relates to today's situation with the EU trade agreement.
There's no question that the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement really was a huge breakthrough at the time because it marked a very distinct change in policy. From a personal perspective, what I remember particularly was the former international trade minister, Jim Kelleher, passed away just recently in Brian Mulroney's government, coming to Chicago. He arrived from having done a number of consultations across Canada at a time where Canada was trying to figure a way forward in its relationship with the United States, facing a lot of protectionist measures. And based on those consultations, Jim Kelleher said, look, based on everything we hear, there really is a dog that won't bark out there. Canadian business can compete. Canadian business wants better, more assured access to the U.S. market. And that was the first glimmer back in about 1984, 85, when you could see that the tide was changing and Canadian business was more than prepared to be part of a global marketplace, beginning with the U.S. And, of course, the importance of the new comprehensive economic and trade agreement with the EU is it's really the next big step that Canada has taken. We've had a few free trade deals, but frankly, they're very incidental, and they've just followed the U.S. This one is one where we're moving ahead of the United States in an agreement with Europe, and it means that Canada is really one of the few developed countries in the world that will have a deal with Europe and the United States.
Now, John, for those that don't know, John was the CEO of Canada's Technology Triangle for a number of years, which is our Waterloo Region Economic Development Agency. Did a fabulous job there and brought your experience as a trade commissioner to the region, which has been tremendously important. So you understand not only from your time as a diplomat across the U.S. and around the world, understand what it means for Canadian business. But specifically, what does this mean for business here in the region of Waterloo? I know we've got connections right around the world. We're a global marketplace. But what does this mean for the region and the businesses here?
It's going to do a great deal that will power the Waterloo region, as it will other Canadian business, and it presents a strategic opportunity for Canada, and the Waterloo region has no reason not to be in the front line in attracting European investment. From the point of view of foreign direct investment attraction, CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, will mean that a European company, shall we say a German company, coming to Canada, why not the Waterloo region, has access to the U.S., for that matter Mexico, by being in Canada.
Exactly.
Which they can't have in terms of being in the U.S.
Yeah.
We're in discussion with our very special guest, John Tennant, on the subject of the Canada-EU Free Trade Agreement announced recently, and in conversation with Greg DeRocher, President and CEO of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and, of course, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce.
John, much in the headlines about some of the challenges around this. We always hear the negativity first whenever something like this comes out. But in reality, is this going to be a big challenge for the government to get everyone on board and start moving forward and actually ink the deal so that we can start to do this free trade with Europe?
There certainly are some steps ahead, but as compared to the political heat and debate that there was at the time of the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, this one, I think, is occurring at a time when people in Canada have come to realize very fully that Canada has to be part of the global marketplace. Free trade with the U.S. and subsequently NAFTA has, I think most people agree, been very good.
Beneficial.
And, in fact, there aren't that many political challenges with respect to the European CETA agreement. I mean, there's the cheese aspect, the agricultural side. There's also some people making some heat over the pharmaceuticals. But this is not an arrangement that fundamentally changes any of the economic structures or policies in Canada.
You know what I guess confuses me a little bit. We're looking at a market over there that has 500 million consumers. And we have 35 million consumers. Obviously, we got to look at opening our doors to 500 million consumers. I'm not sure how many businesses out there, I don't care whether you're in the dairy business or not, that wouldn't say, gee, 500 million more customers, that's got to be a positive.
It is the largest integrated economy in the world, larger than the United States. As you say.
Isn't it not 25% of the world's economic output?
In fact, the EU GDP, the EU imports are equivalent to Canada's economy,
wow.
The GDP.
Amazing.
John, you said something off the air. You said this was a free trade deal and more. What did you mean by that?
Well, this is the important thing that is being said about CETA, is that it is the most comprehensive trade agreement that Canada's entered into, moving well beyond trade into services, covering investment, covering labor mobility. The Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement and then NAFTA were quite broad, but that's 25 years ago, and a lot has happened in the world, including the kind of technologies that we're dealing with. So this agreement has been crafted to cover the full spectrum of business interests and the things that go with doing business, so that the hope is Canadian Waterloo region engineers, architects can be free to practice as accredited professionals in Europe. A company in Waterloo region, say like Myovision, who were quoted in some of the Canadian government literature on this, can sell their equipment in Europe. But as we all know, a company like Myovision with its traffic tracking is much more about the equipment. It's about all the software that goes with it, the people. And you've got to be able to move those people and be engaged. So that's why this is much more comprehensive.
So it's good services and human capital, which is much more expansive than what the FTA or the NAFTA was.
Right, and it drives it that further distance. Right. So while our trade with Europe may not be quite the size of the U.S., the breadth of this agreement is what really makes it important.
We're going to be joined in a second by Peter Braid, who's the MP for Kitchener-Waterloo. So he'll talk about some of the process and some of the hoops that in terms of getting the approvals that Greg talked about. But you're an advisor, a director, and a consultant in your next phase of your life. So you work with the business community to help our community get on the map with folks. So what are some of these practical implications for a business that may not do business there now, but follow it through to take an example of someone who says, "Hey, that market's open to us. How do I get started?" What are the things that they should be thinking about in context of this agreement?
Well, number one, from the point of view of any business's strategy, is it gives Canada a leg up in Europe, and as we've just discussed, ahead of the United States. And so it's not just European companies coming to Canada, but the opportunity for Canadian companies to go to Europe. The second key point is that this agreement very quickly reduces tariffs to zero. When the agreement comes into effect, virtually all non-agricultural tariffs will go to zero for Canadians going into Europe. It will be a little bit more slowly paced on agriculture,
but we'll get there too.
We'll get to something like 99%.
John, Ian, I don't know about you, but I think we're going to have John back,
absolutely,
and maybe for a complete show to really talk about this as the nuts and bolts of this trade agreement start to come down, and they'll come down fairly quickly. We need to have John back and really have an in-depth discussion on an entire show about this.
I agree. John, thank you so much for your time today. John Tennant was our guest as we continue the discussion on the free trade deal with the European Union. We're going to talk more about it as Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, continues on 570 News.
This is 570 News. You're listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy, featuring local businesses, solutions, and success stories, connecting community through business on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. And joining us now as we continue the discussion on the free trade deal with the EU is Kitchener-Waterloo Conservative MP Peter Braid.
Peter, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time of your busy schedule. Big news on the free trade front this week, and we've been talking on our show over a number of weeks about the importance of trade within Canada. But this is a huge deal for Canada. So talk to us about what what they call CETA, which is really the European Union Free Trade Agreement. Tell us about that agreement and what it means for Canada.
Well, it's great to have the opportunity to be on your show. Once again, Ian, thank you very much for the invitation. As you say, this is indeed the Canada-European Free Trade Agreement is a huge historic deal. What this means for Canada, it will benefit every region of Canada, almost virtually every industry, every sector. It will mean 80,000 new jobs for Canadians. It'll mean an injection of $12 billion annually to our economy. Canada is a trading nation. We rely on trade. 60% of our GDP is trade-related. This will help grow our economy, create jobs. For consumers, it will mean more choice, more competition, and lower prices.
So what's the time frame? I know it still has to be ratified within Canada, and I presume across Europe. So when you talk about 80,000 jobs, and that's a number we've been hearing, and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and others agree with that number. But what's the time frame? I mean, we have to have some approvals, and I think the provinces maybe talk about the process of why it should be approved. I think most of the provinces have signaled they are going to approve it. But talk about the process inside Canada as best you can, and then Europe, and when this would actually start to be felt by Canadian business.
That's a great question. At this point, we have an agreement in principle, and again, I should add, one of the reasons this deal is so important is because it means that Canada is one of the few countries in the world with preferential access to both the United States and to Europe. And Europe, in fact, is the largest economy in the world in terms of size of GDP. So that's, again, really important to highlight. So at this point, we have an agreement in principle. Now, I must highlight that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and each of our 10 provinces have been involved with this complex process of negotiation over the past 4 years from the outset. We have involved the provinces and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and that's why the provinces know that they support this deal.
Right.
It's been the most involved, engaged, transparent, open, accountable agreement that we've ever negotiated. So it needs to be ratified both in Canada's Parliament, in each of our 10 provinces, and in each of the 28 European countries. So it's anticipated that that process of ratification throughout Canada, throughout the European Union, will take approximately 2 years. And then following ratification, then the agreement will be in force, and Canadian businesses, Canadian consumers will begin to see the benefits.
Well, so that's a good jumping off point. And I'm sure there'll be time, and we'll want to have you and some of your colleagues back to discuss in more detail, drill down on the agreement. But for today, there are a couple of things which I wanted your analysis on is how does this benefit the region of Waterloo? So at a high level, what are some of the sectors? In my reading of it, I think advanced manufacturing, technology, ICT are two of the areas that will have great possibilities. But what are some of the areas from your perspective will benefit particularly in the region of Waterloo?
Absolutely. You've touched on two of them already. So in terms of sectors in Waterloo region that will benefit, definitely our high-tech sector, information and communications technology, specifically smartphone apps, robotics, fiber optics, advanced manufacturing, food processing is another one. And, often, Ian, when I find I'm visiting food processing or manufacturing companies in Kitchener-Waterloo, much of the equipment and the machinery they're using actually comes from Europe.
Oh, is that right?
In many cases from Germany. So in this
because
case,
they're certainly high-tech operations.
They're very high-tech, very advanced manufacturing. So in this case, with the elimination of tariffs, that equipment will be much less expensive for those businesses. So from the input side, if any European companies are involved in the supply chain of a Kitchener-Waterloo company, or if they're purchasing machinery or equipment from Europe, then that's going to be much cheaper. On the output side, this agreement provides access to a market of 500 million people for our businesses, for our SMEs in Waterloo region. So ICT, definitely, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, food processing, and the auto sector.
Yeah. Now, Greg's is just asking or wrote down. So we've talked about the Canada and we've talked about the region of Waterloo and how they benefit, at least in broad terms. But one of the things we're always concerned about, and maybe he can fill in a little bit in a second, but and one of the things, most of our members, in my case, 50, I don't know about you, Greg, but 57% of our members have 10 employees or less, 20% or 20 employees or less. You're up to almost 70% of our businesses. And Greg's got, I think you have similar numbers, Greg?
Yep, absolutely.
So what, one of the things we talk about all the time is how do our members benefit, but more broadly, how do SMEs? And I know the Canadian Chamber has been focused, and I'm understanding, I haven't seen it yet, but our question is, how do small businesses in the region of Waterloo, as an example, benefit, and where can they find out about it? I think there's a website, so maybe you can talk about that.
Yes, well, there's huge potential here for SMEs. In fact, in 2010, almost half of our exports to Europe from Canada were from SMEs. So there's great potential there. I think for SMEs in Waterloo region, they need to keep in mind that the world is their market. I would suggest, if they don't already, that they have a strong web and internet presence, that they understand that having access to the European market provides huge potential, that they work through Canadian Trade Commissioner and trade offices overseas as well to understand potential markets for them. In terms of getting information on the Canada-European Free Trade Agreement, I would suggest that companies go to www.actionplan.gc.ca and then look for the information on this particular agreement. And as well, for information on the trade commissioners, similarly go to www.tradecommissioner.gc.ca and understand the potential opportunities that they have.
Great. Well, now there's I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. I know you're going to be off for a vote shortly, but one of the things that we've been talking about, and we're very fortunate in the region of Waterloo to have Minister Goodyear's still in cabinet, but you've got a very important new role. And we've talked about this many times, the importance of infrastructure to the whole country, but to our communities. So you're the new parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I'm very honored that just a couple of weeks ago the Prime Minister appointed me as the Parliamentary Secretary to Infrastructure and Communities. This is a great opportunity for me to support the Minister, in this case Minister LaBelle, who is our Minister of Infrastructure, in the fulfilling of his important duties and responsibilities. It means I have the opportunity to contribute to the policy development process with respect to infrastructure, to represent the minister across the country in the House of Commons. Infrastructure, as you've pointed out, Ian, is critically important to our country's economy, and the federal government is particularly interested in infrastructure that supports our economy, that protects our health and safeguards our environment. In our last budget, we announced the new Building Canada Fund, which over the next 10 years will provide over $50 billion for infrastructure across the country. And we're going to work in close partnership with provinces and municipalities to meet our infrastructure needs.
No, I think the certainly AMO in our case in Ontario have been pretty supportive of that commitment, and that's something they've been asking for.
And FCM as well, I believe.
FCM, but they want more surety, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. What the municipalities have been asking for is certainty. So now we have a 10-year plan. This is very rare in terms of federal government budget commitments because it's difficult to look out and plan over a 10-year horizon. But our new Building Canada plan is a 10-year commitment with a specific amount of money. It provides certainty, stability, and flexibility to municipalities in terms of project criteria.
One last quick question, Peter, on this EU agreement, and I was reading about it with interest this morning, and it's very exciting, I think, especially for our SMEs. It's going to give them an opportunity to really maybe easily access foreign markets, I think, certainly when trade barriers are eliminated or mitigated. But one component of it that I found kind of interesting, and of course we know we don't have the details, but there was some talk in there about the ease of immigration and now moving people back and forth as opposed to talent as opposed to product and services. So maybe you want to speak to how does that work in this type of trade agreement?
That's another great question. Our economy relies on the efficient and the effective flow of both goods and people, including talent. And we need to ensure that as a trading nation we have, and a country of immigrants, that we have opportunities to trade, to export, that our consumers have choice, but that our immigration systems are also effective and efficient as well. And that when we have particular areas of labor shortage in Canada, that we're able to effectively fill those areas of labor shortage through immigration channels. So trade and immigration do go hand in hand in that regard.
You're probably well aware that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce is a strong proponent of this agreement. Your local chambers of commerce are strong proponents of this agreement. We know there's still a lot more rows to hoe before this thing is all put to bed, but we certainly encourage you to keep it up and push forward as fast as possible. We would like to really start to engage our SMEs and even our larger companies in doing more export to the European market and look for that trade coming back as well. So congratulations on your appointment, and as well congratulations to the government for this monumental deal that's going to really help foster economic prosperity in the Waterloo region.
You're absolutely right. Greatly appreciated, Greg and Ian, for the opportunity.
And we're going to have you back on once you've got your feet under the desk, and because this communities and infrastructure is hugely important,
very important
for trade. You know, when you're talking about the bridges and connections to the U.S. and other ways, but infrastructure and communities are hugely important. So we'll have you back on in a separate show so we can drill down on that a little bit.
Thanks very much for your time, Peter.
Look forward to our next opportunity.
Great.
Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. What you know. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. Well, gentlemen, I really don't think it can be stated enough the significance of this particular free trade deal. 4 years in the making with the European Union.
Oh, there's no question about it. I think, Ian and I had a really good conversation off air, and John Tennant is a fantastic spokesman around this. His depth and breadth of knowledge about trade and economic development is something we need to tap into. And Ian and I even thought about maybe doing a joint event where we can, maybe even do a panel of some sort. What is important, Ian, is we've got to be able to convey to our SMEs, small businesses in our two chambers, and in our communities that need to be able to have the knowledge and step-by-step process on how they're going to get engaged in this and do some business in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And, we were just, I think as John was indicating, 2015 is just around the corner.
Oh, man.
The planning horizon for anyone that says, okay, I might like to explore doing that, it'll be like tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So, I think what we really should say, let's get John on, because I think he could do 20 minutes, and it would be a fascinating 20 minutes on a little bit of the history of his involvement with free trade, the NAFTA agreement. What are some of the things that have been learned? Because they've clearly learned from this in terms of how they negotiated the deal, involving the provinces right along the way, involving people like the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So there doesn't seem to be as much angst about this. But John can give some flavor of that historical pattern, but also as a business consultant now in his time as CTT, what are the things that those businesses that are our members and right across the community should be doing to set themselves up and saying, here's what my business is, who do I talk to, what are the things I need to do? Because there's a great opportunity for our businesses in this region to benefit. And I think, if we had John on and then had some of those businesses that are already working there, and some of them are in manufacturing, as he talked about, some of them are in tech, some of them are in engineering. It's our responsibility to let our members know how to get engaged.
What have you guys been hearing from the people in your circle about this deal?
I think there's two things to it, Glenn. I think everybody's kind of excited about it because this is a new opportunity where we've opened up to 500 million consumers, and there is an opportunity. But the other thing they're worried about is how do we get there and how do we participate. And it was interesting to talk to John afterwards off air where he said, back when the free trade agreement, when NAFTA came into existence and Mexico came onto the forum, Canadian business and U.S. businesses were starting already to invest in Mexico.
Even before it was done,
ahead of the agreement even being inked. So, 2000, as Ian said, 2015 is just around the corner. We got to start taking those steps right now so that in 2015 our businesses are in the position to be able to make the investment to do business in Europe.
Now, and I think to be fair, I mean, I remember we were, Glenn, you mentioned, I remember 1988 and that federal election that was all about free trade agreement. My dad, as you know, was running in that election. I remember knocking on doors, and it wasn't
really the most popular thing.
No, well, it was popular enough for the Conservatives to be reelected, but the whole issue was on this, and people talking about cultural sovereignty and our country, erasing the border. I think that's done now. It's general unanimity or general consensus that the U.S. free trade agreement and the NAFTA have been a huge important benefit to Canada. And so this is going to be another one of those, we are a trading nation, we have to do that. So I think we're past that. That's not to say that there are not people that will be concerned. And I think we have farmers and those that may be impacted, but on the whole, I think we have to manage through that.
Yep.
All right. Plenty of discussion to be had on this topic.
Lots, and
this
isn't going to go away anytime soon.
All right,
so.
Lots to talk about in the shows going forward. And joining us now, part of the weekly installment, the Save On Energy feature, is Jeff Quint of Waterloo North Hydro. And this is your second time back on the show. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Let's get right to it. Again, the theme is Save On Energy, and so many dollars can be saved here.
Absolutely. And one of the things we've been talking over the course, and we'll continue for the course of the year, is talking about ways that businesses can save money. Now, as Jeff and I were talking about earlier in the week, it's Small Business Week. We were pleased to have several events, as was Greg, to highlight the importance of small and medium-sized business, to not only to our local economy but across the country. So, what are the things that you do to specifically target that small and medium-sized enterprise? So that small business segment. What are the things that Save On Energy does that can help them?
Well, early on, Save On Energy identified that small businesses have different needs than our larger businesses out there. They don't have a lot of staff and knowledge and capabilities and resources internally. So one of our great programs that helps small businesses is Small Business Lighting. And it's just that. It's a program targeted towards small business to help them upgrade their old lighting. And it's a turnkey program, so what happens is people go out there and they do a nice assessment at the facility, identify some opportunities in their lighting where they can be improved. And then the customer moves on to, agreeing to that. We coordinate contractors to go out there and do the work in their facility at a convenient time for them. And we provide all the equipment and material. We take all the old material and dispose of it in a nice, environmentally friendly way. And the best part about this to the customers is it's free up to $1,500 worth of lighting for them. So It's a free assessment, it's free disposal, it's free install, and it's all done by local contractors. So we're actually building business in the community by using local contractors to do the work for the customers.
So it really is very simple. I mean, once you're in the program, you don't have to go out and say, I'm going to get 3 quotes. I mean, that's what you and the Save On Energy team are able to do, is to say, here are folks that can do it. We know we're getting best price and we're getting best quality. You help them in that process.
Exactly. It's a one-time assessment. It's the standardized assessment across the territory. They come out, they look at the equipment that's existing, they look at the new equipment and the new options that are out there, including LEDs now. And like I said, it's up to $1,500. We make it quick and easy. They have to sign off on a form, and then we coordinate everything on the backside for them and we make it really convenient for them and easy.
So if somebody may say, well, I don't have incandescent lights, I already have fluorescent lights, those are pretty energy efficient. I mean, there always have been or continue to be advancements in terms of energy efficiency and reduction of power use. So if someone's done maybe a retrograde or a improvement 5-6 years ago, should they be thinking about this as well?
Certainly. There's definitely opportunities. We still see a lot of low-hanging fruit in the lighting field where there's old equipment out there in the marketplace, and there's a lot of new equipment, and the program's opened up to LEDs more recently within the last month, and that's opened up a lot of opportunities for customers to start installing, LED products in their facilities where they weren't previously able to under the program. So it's really helping that small business. And like I said, it's turnkey, and that's the key. Small business customers don't have a lot of time and resources, so now it's one person that comes in, does the assessment, and they have to sign off on a form.
Jeff, I know you've said this before. We want to keep this message up, and that is, give us an idea of the kind of savings that small businesses can get in on by this program.
For the $1,500 piece that they get for free, they're looking anywhere from $200 to $500 in annual savings. Back to them. And if they went over the $1,500 mark, there are additional incentives for them, but most of our projects sit below that $1,500 mark. And like I said, that includes install equipment and labor, and we're looking at quality product that's got 5-year warranty behind it, so that the customer, even if he has a failure down the road, it's warranted by these local contractors.
But they're improving their bottom line right away by doing these improvements.
That's the best part about any efficiency project, is that instantaneously, the minute that equipment goes into play, you're now saving energy and saving money.
Okay, well, Jeff, we'll have you back in the next weeks or the weeks coming forward, and get you to talk specifically about some of the programs and some of the ways for people to get involved. Next time, remind me to ask you about Peak Saver Plus. I know we were talking about that, but we've run out of time for today. But thanks for coming in, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jeff Quint, our guest. from Water North Hydro, and we are proud to have Save On Energy on as our main sponsor. You're listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545, or 1-800-570-5715. Support the community. Now back to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
Ian and Greg's rant on the defeat of Bill 73, was it?
Yeah.
The Michael Harris proposed bill on free and open tendering, and you guys are still livid about this.
Oh, my back's sore. It's my back's sore because the muscles are all tense all the time about this. And
well, this is kind of one of those things. And
by the way, how long are you going to keep this rant up?
Forever.
No, you know
Forever.
what? We've talked about this. We are going to talk about this until it's solved. And the reason we're going to do that is it's not just important to the Cambridge Chamber. It's not just important to the Greater KW Chamber. It should be important to every municipality and every Chamber of Commerce
and every resident of the community.
Because everyone pays taxes, and the net result is this is going to cost taxpayers more, or you're going to get less dollar or value for your dollar. So, this whole question, and frankly, I think we got to stop. This is not. I mean, with the greatest respect to Michael Harris, this isn't about Bill 73. This is about solving a problem. That was one vehicle to solve a problem that exists, and I give him full credit for having identified this problem and put it forward. It wasn't successful, so it is about saying there is a problem in the Labor Relations Board and Act, and so it needs to be solved. And we want to know what each party's solution is, and we have yet to hear from the Liberals or the New Democrats about what their solution is going to be.
Well, the Liberals, as Art, your staff member responsible for policy for the Greater KW Chamber, found that the staffers at the ministry said, oh, there is no issue. Well, what are they talking about? There is no issue. Ask the mayor and CAO of Sault Ste. Marie if there's an issue.
Exactly. And we had them on the show a couple of weeks ago, as you know, Glenn, and I mean, they've been dealing with this for 20 years. So the problem has been around for 20 years. Everyone knows it exists, and it needs to be fixed. And in summary, the rant is this. If you're a municipality or you're a school board and you do construction, you can be considered to be a construction company because you're building a facility to deliver the service that you're meant to provide. And so that's ridiculous.
So then what's the ramifications of that? That means that
only the union, in this case, the Carpenters Union, someone affiliated with one union across the whole province, is able to bid on the projects for that municipality. We've said this, but I think it bears highlighting. In the region of Waterloo, $130 million wastewater management projects that have been going on over the last couple of years. We had 27 qualified bidders. It would have been down to 2. If there's anyone in this province that makes the argument to me or to any of our businesses that when you get 2 bids versus 27, you're going to get the lowest price and the most competitive bid, I don't know what planet they're living on, because it is not one that I'm familiar with. But in any event, I think we've talked that we've been talking about this. How do we highlight this? We will be working, and we've said we are going to talk about this until it's solved. Don't care who solves it, and if it takes a provincial election, there will be no other issue that we're talking about. We've talked about we're going to have all candidates meetings.
We're gonna try and get meetings with each of the party leaders.
That's the next step, because we don't feel it should wait till the next election. This can be solved right now. Frankly, it can be solved by the government making regulatory changes, or if necessary, can put something in front of the legislature. So we are going to put a request in. And
I mean, you guys can rant on this show, but are you going to, as a group or even individually, try and put some heat on the premier?
Yeah, well, that's what we're saying is we are going to, as a matter of fact, we've indicated, through our local representatives, we're going to ask for a meeting with each of the leaders. So we're going to ask for a meeting with Premier Wynne, with Leader Horvath and Leader Hudak, and we're going to ask the question, say, here's what our members are saying. How do you plan on solving this problem? And tell us precisely what you're going to do, because we are going to communicate that back to our members.
All right.
So and this is no joke. It is so important to the whole region and to the province.
All right. We'll look forward to another installment of Greg and Ian's rant. But to matters at hand.
Yes,
what have you guys
we've
got
we've got some great programs coming up at the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Monday, November the 4th, we got our business after hours at the new Dunfield Retirement Home. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. And this is a great opportunity to come out and network with businesses, but also to see this incredible new retirement facility that we're all going to be in someday. Well, we hope to. Glenn, you look like you're close, so.
Oh, thank you, Greg.
And actually, Wednesday, November the 6th, we've got a social media guru who we've had on this show, Frank Kenny from Portland, Oregon. He's actually going to be in Cambridge on November the 6th for breakfast and talk about social media strategies for small business, and it's going to be great. And just one last thing before we get into a really important event that the both of us are involved with. But Tuesday, November the 12th, we have our first annual Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Awards at the Dunfield Theatre. So this is where we're going to recognize people who and organizations who are nonprofits or charities who don't always get those awards. We're going to recognize them for the good works that they do in our community. So that's Tuesday, November the 12th. But the real important one that Ian and I are working on, along with our friends and colleagues in Guelph, is Monday, November the 18th. It's the 2013 Business Expo. And McLean's all over me all the time about this. Push, push, push.
Absolutely.
This is a fantastic opportunity for businesses and business individuals in our communities to come together, network, see what's going on, exchange cards. There are going to be 2,000 people at this event. And, you know, in reality, what I've always liked to say is, if you're not there, you're alone in your world.
Yeah.
You need to be out at this event. And participate.
And the reason we're going to be sold out. We have 190 booths. I think we're down to our last 15 or so, so we'll be sold out for that booth. So if you're interested, call one of your chambers, but the Cambridge Chamber or the KW Chamber, and get your booth space. It's at Binghamton Park. We take over the whole place. A couple of the new things we're trying this year is we're going to have some sessions with some of the providers like the Business Development Bank of Canada and Federal Development Bank of or Federal Development Agency of Southern Ontario, FedDev, because there are programs and services that our members should be aware of that can help them grow their business. So we're going to have that will be in a room where they can go and get some information on how to do things, which is great. We're going to have Protunity, which is something that we want people to familiarize themselves, because really that's a matchmaking service that connects business even better, and we're excited about what that could mean for our members. So this is a really big deal. Go to one of our websites and find out. November 18th is going to be a great day.
And you know what we're going to do, Ian? We're going to make sure that Glenn comes out.
Absolutely.
And we're going to introduce him around to the business community, because he's now the host of Business to Business. So
absolutely.
What night of the week is that?
Which is a better
job.
Monday. Which is a better job than you normally have.
Monday, November 18th, and it'll be a great. I think it's 4 to 7. We have a great 4 hours, and so there's lots of great opportunity. Now we have one event on November the 13th, our Chamber of Young Professionals at Entertaining Elements, so we encourage folks to register for that.
Gentlemen.
Lots of educational events. Go to our website, www.greaterkwchamber.com.
All right, and join us next week for another installment of Business to Business on 570 News.
Hi there, it's George.